Hello and welcome to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast for a film that isn't talked about enough on the internet. We're, of course, talking about George Lucas's Star Wars because why not? Everyone? Yeah. No, this is my second win, and so we decided to go with another one of my favorite films, Star Wars. It's such an obscure film, but no, let's go through and just like put it out there. What are people's opinions on the first Star Wars film, Star Wars, also known as A New Hope? Let's just first lay it all out there.
It's probably my favorite of them,
Mm-hmm.
or at least tied with Empire.
Mm-hmm.
It switches depending on which one I watch last, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. This one, it's top two, I
Mm-hmm.
think, in terms of best quality. Probably top three if I'm going by favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it flip-flops with Empire a lot in both of those, just like Ben. Rogue One is also up there for me. In terms of quality and enjoyment levels. But yeah, the original film, it's hard to compare anything to the original film.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Maxwell, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to think about what it kicked off,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was this, it's just magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of those films that when you see it for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get it.
I genuinely believe, and I'm curious about what you guys think, but I do genuinely believe that like Star Wars can justifiably be called like a cornerstone of popular American cinema, like a foundational stone that like almost all people can agree is good, like in a similar place that like The Wizard of Oz or It's a Wonderful Life sits at, where even though like it's not necessarily like critics number one, like all people, no matter how invested in film or disinterested in film, can agree is like one of the most influential and greatest works in American cinema. Like,
Influential, sure. I wouldn't put, this is just a matter of personal preference, but It's a Wonderful Life.
hmm.
Eh.
Fair enough. I would
It
just
doesn't it doesn't
list.
agree with me,
Mm-hmm.
that film.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
I wouldn't put it among the greatest ever made.
That's because
Uh,
it came out prior to 1980. Let's just be clear. No.
Hey, what year
I'll
is the movie
say
that we're talking about tonight? 1977.
I'm
Shut your ass.
I'm not a big fan of It's a Wonderful Life, I'll be honest.
Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
I
what I was going to say was that is a beautiful way to say it is a piece of pop culture. Yes.
yeah.
A lot of embellishment on that one.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
yeah, I mean, it is one of the big ones you can always, turn to. It's ascended past just film,
mhm.
culture. It really is just a piece of people reference it in anything, songs, whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, it's definitely very important.
Yeah. And one thing about like I feel like in recent times I've rewatched Star Wars because it's like
How
when
would
are
you
we
do
not
that,
when
man?
are we not rewatching Star Wars? Am I right, fellas? Like that's anyway. No, but it's like when I was younger, I feel like this this first film, just part of the story, and no questions asked. But I feel like when I return to it now, it's sometimes fun to like watch it and see the parts of the film that are very clearly like first episode weird things that that are later changed in later films. The most obvious example is the fact that like Luke is being set up to be interested romantically in Princess Leia, given that, you know, later they turned out to be brother and sisters. This is like the most like cliche, but also like most obvious, like humorous.
I really don't think it's that bad though.
No,
I
no,
mean-
it's
No,
it's
no.
something I only
Declan,
noticed,
Declan,
like,
shut up for a second. Ben, explain what you mean by that.
no, no, I mean like
Mm.
his interest in Princess Leia, I've always looked at it as more of an interest like in the rebellion itself. I mean, that was his interest from the beginning. And she kisses him like once in it for good luck.
Mhm.
I'm completely like seeing the rest of the movies. I'm completely happy seeing it and just not seeing it
yeah.
in that way. I don't think it's that
Oh
overt.
yeah, yeah.
They
I
don't
want to be
lock
clear.
lips until Empire, so
They do actually. So that shows how much you've watched.
what are you talking about? They don't kiss on the lips in this movie.
They do actually. They kiss when Luke swings her across. She quickly.
That's on the cheek. That's on the cheek,
like-
Benjamin.
I feel like I'm
It
genuinely.
looks.
I
It looks
can't-
pretty close.
I cannot remember if it's like who. I cannot remember who's right here. Actually, I'm not joking. Like
It's
like,
me,
but-
but let's move on.
yeah, no, but like that's I do agree. Like that, it's not.
Ben's looking up the film.
It's
He's going back
not.
to the
It's
game
not.
film.
It's not obvious enough that it like takes away anything. It's just humorous to me. The other
They also
thing,
don't know at that
Yeah,
point,
they
right?
also-
oh
So
yeah,
like
yeah, no,
it's
no,
not and when the film came out, nobody knew.
yeah. It's I remember seeing just like a reference to the fact that like back in the 70s prior to Return of the Jedi, like many people were rooting for Luke and Leia to get together over Han and Leia, actually, at least maybe prior to Empire, but they might have also been operating under the impression that Han was dead, you know, when he wasn't actually, but you know, frozen in carbonite, that seems like dead, but only mostly dead. No, but nonetheless, the other thing that is humorous to me rewatching the film with like keeping hindsight in and like trying to think about what a first time viewer would see. It's funny the status of Darth Vader in this film. What?
George is wrong.
No, I'm not.
It's
There's-
very
I've seen
clear.
this movie probably 1 billion times. That's an exaggeration.
You
There's
are
no
not
chance in hell
watching.
I'm wrong about that.
Dude, you can go look at it, but it very clearly Luke turns to her as she kisses him. So I've watched this movie probably more times than you. It's okay.
I've
But-
watched this movie way more than you have. Do not step to me, bro.
I mean, just watch it again, I guess.
All
All right, go on, Declan. Sorry, I just had to
I know,
confirm
just
myself.
like just another like strange thing to like notice is Darth Vader, in the sense that like given that he's like, you know, the like apprentice of the Emperor and like theoretically one of the most powerful individuals, like in this first movie, he does seem like he's just kind of a weirdo in a suit who is like more like the muscle than like the like main commander. I feel. What do you guys think? It's like I feel like it's Darth Vader's status fully as like one of the most important characters, like while set up here, isn't fully there kind of. What do you guys think?
I disagree.
I think just I see your point, Declan. I also disagree.
Mhm.
But I see where you're coming from. Again, Grand Moff Tarkin has a really big role in the military strength of the Empire in this film. And so Vader, you know, in that early meeting that is probably best comped to, like, I don't know, the top military minds for the US, Joint Chiefs or whatever.
Mhm.
And Vader's there like, this the Death Star is great, but it's nothing compared to the power of the Force. It's like, yes, it is. It can destroy a planet.
That is true.
So I see what you're saying, that Vader's kind of like this religious zealot, I
Mhm.
guess. One, because we haven't really been introduced to the Emperor, so he's kind of our only look at the dark side of the Force at this point.
Mhm.
But yeah, I feel like he, and maybe Ben, you can get into this a little bit more, but I feel like Vader, his, might as a villain is clear and present from the opening scene.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, I would say Vader's biggest thing is he's intimidating.
Mhm.
You get that down in all of his scenes, and also, I mean, the breathing's iconic for him. I feel like most of his characters made it in this film. And to be honest, like, he is an intelligent person, but he is the muscle.
Mhm.
To your point, he is, like, that's what the Emperor uses him for. So
True. True.
um, that kind of works to the story's advantage.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, that is actually fair. Fair. It is like you can envision a version of Star Wars from the first film. It's interesting to imagine the what ifs of Star Wars, and like there's actually like an example that exists out there, which it was adapted into a book. I'm blanking on the title, Ben, you might know, where if Star Wars had not been a massive success and was merely just they needed to do a sequel, but it would be like on a smaller scale. George Lucas wrote like he had someone write like a novel that like essentially was that, where like it stars Luke and Leia on a planet. Han Solo isn't there, and they're like searching for like some sort of like specific. I think it's like a crystal or some sort. I wish I could remember the title of it, but it's like it's an interesting look at like the what ifs of Star Wars as a franchise. Like,
Well, you have to remember, going back to the late 70s, the sequence of ideas, regardless of whether or not this original film was a hit, the sequence of ideas was Star Wars, the Star Wars holiday special, The Empire Strikes Back. So, even they didn't really know what they had
mhm,
after the first film was a gigantic success.
yeah, yeah.
And
So,
it almost failed so much. Production was tough.
Hmm.
well, it had never
But
been done before.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, this
no,
level
but
of,
they had a lot of issues on production, like delays and stuff. There was like sandstorms and stuff that
Mm,
ruined, filming a few days.
mhm,
They had a lot of issues. The one thing that I find curious about the production is, well, first of all, the sound and the special effects are
mhm,
amazing. The revolutionary, the way that they got some of those sounds is unbelievable.
mhm,
But if I remember the story correctly, George Lucas showed an early draft of Star Wars to
mhm.
Francis Ford Coppola, Brian De Palma, and Steven Spielberg. And when the
Mhm.
credits rolled, Brian De Palma stood up and yelled like, "What the hell?" Um, and he convinced George Lucas that, like, it didn't make sense for the rebels to be going and destroying the Death Star. The original scene did not have the Death Star going to fire on the rebel base. And so they took all pre-recorded footage, all the any of the times Grand Moff Tarkin is like saying stuff or observing stuff, anytime Princess Leia or anyone on the ground is there talking about the rebel base, gonna be fired on, that's all edited in. And that editor was Marsha Lucas, George's wife, at the time at least.
Yeah. No, I
This
will
film
say
won
this.
this film won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
in a year
deservedly so.
No
that had a
film
lot of
has ever
struggles.
deserved the best editing Academy Award more than Star Wars, I would say. But
That's legendary.
I will say this
Yeah.
for Star Wars. Again, I was also thinking about this while watching it. Given how much George Lucas, the stuff behind the scenes, trying to accomplish so much, I do feel like George Lucas is a remarkably good director of action here. I feel like
So
that
my
is
question is, what happened 30 years later?
yeah, that is a valid.
I mean, to be honest, I know what happened, which is George was always like fascinated with technology. And that was
God,
to
if the
his
prequels-
success in the early Star Wars and to his detriment later on.
Yeah.
If the
The
prequels
CGI
were
was
made
not there
now,
yet.
if the prequels were made now with modern visual effects technology, they would be, well, they would still have terrible scripts, but
Yeah.
So some of those scripts, were pretty bad.
No, of course.
I will say the choreography for some of the lightsaber fights is fantastic. It's just some of the CGI.
And I will give credits to especially the Phantom Menace that it did pioneer advances in
it did.
CGI,
and honestly, who knows whether CGI would be where it's at if they didn't start it when they did with Star Wars. I mean, they had Avatar only a few years later, like 7 years later. And that was after, James Cameron invested his own stuff into CGI.
No, I mean, it's certainly possible, but it's still it is important to acknowledge it being the forerunner there. But in the I would say in terms of both building the world while keeping it sensical, though that's also partially the editing, and also his action scenes, I feel managed to be remarkably solid. Obviously he took inspiration from World War II films and all that. That's everyone talks about that, but
they also took a lot of influence from Kurosawa.
Oh yes, and get to that in a second. But it's almost underspoken about how well made they managed to make the movie, partially through the editing process. Does
the ability to work with both what you had practically on the sets at the time and then to be able to seamlessly work in all of the models and scaled figures that they worked with for this film. The Millennium Falcon flying through space was smaller than the room that many of you are sitting in. I wouldn't know, I'm in outer space right now, but they had, for lack of a better word, toys that they were playing with to make this movie, and I mean that in absolutely the best way. So they're creating this universe, building it up from scratch, story wise and world building wise, but then the real life, like I said, the models that they used and the miniaturized sets to then work that in with the real life, the, you know, practical actors and sets and locations is just tremendous.
Mhm. It's effects that like are it's remarkable. I honestly feel how timeless they still are. Like the
There are effects in this movie that are better than in some movies made in 2005.
yes,
Revenge
yes.
of the Sith. Sorry.
No, but like for real, it's like it's it it's one of those things where it's like I feel like no one has to suspend like you have to suspend disbelief when you see the terrible 2004 era CGI in the while watching
I
this.
really don't care about it that much.
No, I don't. It's obviously it's not.
I can watch Revenge of the Sith fine. I just don't care for like the screenplays.
Mhm.
Scripts are not
What
very good.
what sucks for me about rewatching this movie, speaking of the CGI,
Mhm.
is all of the remastered bullshit.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Like,
especially.
you know, the biggest example being our first introduction to Jabba the Hutt, where you had this great practical puppet
Mhm.
that's larger than life in the original version of this film, and that we again later see in Return of the Jedi. But in what you can see on Disney Plus, and you know, the DVD copy of that and the
He
digital as
destroyed
it
all the
exists
other
now,
copies. He
I
hunted
basically,
them down himself.
it's just, you know, animated. I think is the best word for it. It's not even, you
Mhm.
know, an attempt at digitally inserting something computer generated into the scene. It's let's put an animated character
Over
onto the
like.
screen, and we're not gonna, you know,
Mhm.
we'll have the sight lines match up, but it's really not like no one's gonna believe this
Yeah.
Yeah.
is
I
really
don't think
there.
anyone is a big fan of this.
Once someone pointed out to me
But coming
that
out of the
like
cantina, that's really jarring because the
yeah.
cantina, you're still seeing all of the masks and the costumes and the props.
Hmm.
You know, with Greedo and you
Yeah.
know, the whole Han shot first scene, the
Mhm.
cantina band, you're seeing all of these really creative, really cool masks and costumes and props.
Mhm.
And then Han's going to the Falcon, and there's, you know, big slug guy, animated,
Yeah.
doesn't even look like Jabba the Hutt, really. Looks more
No.
like Jabba from
Yeah.
the Clone Wars.
Like all the information that's conveyed to the audience in that scene is essentially conveyed by Greedo when he confronts Han. It like once someone pointed that out, it becomes a little jarring like to watch. It's like why bother putting that scene back in, you know? Like it's when Greedo basically got the job done pretty well, like for explaining, the Han situation and like why he's needs to pay back Jabba. It's like it's 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 a decision by George Lucas that's a little bit questionable, much like some of
Yeah.
his other
Look, as
choices.
I said, George Lucas is just too obsessed with technology, and sometimes
Mm,
technology was not there
mhm.
for him yet.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, let's move on. I don't think anyone really likes those other than George Lucas, probably.
You
Yeah.
know, I have probably somewhere still in my parents' house the VHS copy that I grew up on.
Mm.
You know, I grew up watching the original trilogy. I I'm sure if I looked hard enough, I would find the pre-remastered
Hmm.
version of this film
Oh,
with
I have it,
Mm.
but
Yes.
like as bad as the remaster is, I really do love the quality of the film,
Oh yeah.
and luckily he restricts the CGI inserts to like 2 minutes on Tatooine.
Hmm. Yeah. It's unnecessary, but doesn't ruin
Yeah,
it.
it's like once you get off, who cares? Because everything else is back to normal.
Yeah, yeah. Though, speaking of things coming back to normal,
I will say one good thing that he did was the CGI rework for the fifth movie, where he actually put in the Emperor, Ian McDermott, instead of. I mean, it was actually a cool idea. It was like some animal, like I don't know, a lizard or something with weird things on it.
it was a person, but
It
like
was a woman.
was wearing like a weird mask or something, I
It was a
think.
woman wearing a mask.
Was it just a mask? I remember there
Yeah.
being like somehow using like lizard eyes.
I think, yeah, I
think they
think in
did.
the mask, maybe they like added in lizard
Yeah.
eyes or something like.
I'll have to look it up and see what the effect was. But regardless, it does work.
Mhm.
It's better for continuity.
Yeah. But
Especially because there's a dialogue change for Vader in that scene
Mhm.
that is different from how the film originally portrayed it in Empire.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
it's an
go on,
interesting thing. It's like it's like essentially in Empire, when it first released, it's basically implied that like Vader already knew that, spoiler, that Luke was his son. While in the new version, I always interpret it as the Emperor confirming to Vader that Luke Skywalker is in fact his son, but it's like arguably he's like learning for the first time that Luke Skywalker is alive and not dead, like he thought. But it's an interesting.
There's books that go on, about his internal thoughts.
Oh yeah.
About all this stuff.
Ben, I have a question for you. Has your name been Ben Kenobi for the entire episode?
It has.
It has. Yeah.
I just noticed.
I haven't gotten by this name in a long time.
That's pretty fun.
Hell yeah. No, but speaking of Ben Kenobi, I think we also now got to talk about why the performances here are also so good. I mean, again, it's weird to like praise people's performances because they're so iconic that like they're almost like above criticism to a certain extent. Well, we will get to it, but like I'll just say like what another work of brilliance on Lucas's part was to have not one but two characters who are kind of like normal to us, the audience, that being both Luke and Han Solo. But it was also, sorry, George, I think I was going to interrupt. I was interrupting you on something. What were you going to say?
I finished what I was saying.
Okay.
Yeah, what?
Okay, no.
You interrupted yourself.
Okay. Sorry. No, I think partially I also just now noticed George's name, which I'm like a little bit like, how did I miss that? But how it goes.
Yeah.
So
I changed it after I noticed Ben had changed his name.
Hell yeah. That makes sense. But no, but it just the presence of both Luke and Han Solo, like I think are possibly a certain key to this film's success with like general audiences as well. Because if you only have one person who's like normal per se, it's kind of like it's too much. But with two people, it's like, there are multiple people bouncing around each other who the audience can connect to.
Yeah, I mean, Han's sort of like that, but I would say the key to it is less that he's relatable. I would say he's more of a guide, like Ben, Kenobi.
Well,
Luke,
Han is, as much as Luke is the, sort of audience's ticket into the film, Han is too.
Are you gonna let me finish my thought, or
go ahead?
my
What I was gonna say was Han is sort of his guide in the same way that Kenobi is,
Mm.
in that Luke is more of the audience. It's a hero's journey, you know, Luke is like a nobody, and then he goes and out and saves the entire galaxy or whatever. But Han is sort of a guide through the universe, you know, he takes them through the universe. He is quite literally their pilot. And then Kenobi is sort of the guide for Luke in, you know, teaching him the ways of the Force. So just like he's being taught all this stuff, it teaches the audience as well. So that's how I've always seen Han. I mean, he's sort of, you know, relatable and fun, but for the first film, I would say the primary protagonist is Luke, and everyone else is there to help him.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like Luke is our focal point for the audience.
I 100% agree with what you just said. I think building on that, Han is as sort of like a dialogue-driven gateway for the audience into the story. A lot of what he says, you know, with particularly his disbelief of the Force, is sort of like, oh, well, you know, should we, the audience, believe in it? So he's relatable in that sense, but again, you know, the audience, like you said, Ben, latches onto Luke for his hero's journey. He is finding his place in the galaxy, finding his place in this story. And he's the one, no matter how much Han and Chewie help in the battle over the Death Star, the Battle of Yavin, as it were, Luke is the one who, you know, hits the exhaust port with his proton torpedoes.
I feel like the biggest thing about it is, like, Kenobi is known by people, you know, he has this sort of reputation. Han Solo is also reputable, more in infamy, but you get the feeling that, you know, everybody knows who he is. Greedo's, you know, hunting him down. He already has his own story, sort of, and he's there to assist. Whereas Luke is the one without a story. He builds it in this film. So I feel like it's more relatable to be Luke in that he's literally just a poor farm boy out in the middle of nowhere who gets to save the entire galaxy, save the princess, you know, live out his wildest dreams.
I'm pretty sure his wildest dream is to go into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen Robot Chicken does, you know, some of these Star Wars ones, and one of my favorites is Luke talking to Uncle Owen. First there was R5 is like sitting on the couch, you know, just watching TV, and Luke's like, hey, aren't you gonna, you know, do this and this and this? He's like, nah, I don't feel like it, but I just watch some TV. Uncle Owen, this droid's got a bad motivator. But my second favorite is Luke talking about Tashi Station, and they show Tashi Station. It's like, welcome to Tashi Station, and let me show you the power converters. You know, a bunch of like half-naked women come out. It's fantastic.
It's also amazing.
This film is done. Go ahead.
No, just I'll just say like how such minor like lines of dialogue both are so well known, and also oftentimes, due to how expansive the Star Wars universe is now, given genuine amounts of backstory.
Yeah, like many Bothan spies died to bring you these plans.
And like
they made an entire damn movie to explain that.
Yeah. I mean, what this film did, and we talked about legacy earlier, like everything from Robot Chicken back to like Spaceballs. Everyone's tried their hand at making a Star Wars spoof. Everyone's had a story inspired by something in Star Wars. For example, Top Gun Maverick's third act was literally the third act of this movie. The exact same. Except, Han
Not
and
in
Luke
space.
didn't end up on the Death Star stealing like a TIE fighter or something. I don't know. I'm diving too far into that theory. Anyway, but this film, has so much of a legacy in film, but also been like Robot Chicken's done it, Family Guy's done it, Mel Brooks did it. It's
To be fair, I mean, Robot
it's an
Chicken did.
opportunity. It's an opportunity to have fun
Yeah.
because it's so well known that you can say what you want about it and no one's gonna get mad. People get mad enough about Star Wars as it is. We could do an entire, weekend long episode about the sequel trilogy, and I'm sure we would never be the same as friends afterwards.
No.
I hate them.
So there you go. So yeah, this film has an enduring legacy across genres, across media that, that's never going to change.
I agree with that. I do feel, and I know this is somewhat controversial, but despite everything,
Don't say something stupid.
I do feel that Star Wars is in fact still special. Star Wars is still a unique, brilliant work of popular culture.
It's still Star Wars.
Yeah.
What we haven't talked about yet, I want to point out one key element of this original film. John Williams.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Yes.
Think about the main title theme. Think about the Cantina song. Think about the throne room and the end credits piece. I mean, they're just iconic. This film.
Well, John Williams had a bit of experience doing iconic stuff even before Star Wars.
It's true, though. I do feel like, has there ever been a film so utterly transformed by its own?
Have you
music?
Seen the movie Jaws?
No, yeah. No. I mean, I mean, just in the sense of the score is so brilliant and so iconic that it's again sort of in talking about the what ifs that I was saying earlier. It's it's almost like terrible to think of what the film would be like if it had just sort of the synthesizer style soundtrack that George Lucas originally.
Oh yeah, bring Vangelis in for this. How about that, Ben?
Yeah.
Honestly, Vangelis is fantastic, but it wouldn't fit. I don't think he was trying to do that.
That wasn't me taking a shot at Blade Runner. That score was awesome.
Honestly, it's kind of tough. You could say that about a bunch of things. Like Blade Runner would not be the same without Vangelis. You create an entire subgenre that didn't exist, like futuristic blues. Like nobody had played anything like that, and now it's like I can't think. I hear the score when I think of Blade Runner. So I feel like score always makes film. It's always an integral part.
Yeah.
Obviously I'll praise John Williams, but I feel like all of his scores are really good. And I believe Jaws was before. It was 1975.
Yeah, 75. Yeah. I ain't trying to diminish Jaws one bit.
No. I'm just saying, I feel like you could take that away, and it wouldn't be the same.
Fair.
You're right. No,
and there's a lot.
No, as in no, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, there's a lot. But yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. It's just it's great. It's a grandiosity that again, it's arguably still unparalleled in terms of. I mean, no other film franchise has had such a long staying power, except maybe James Bond, honestly, like with like music that's like still somewhat remained in use, kind of. I don't know. No,
I mean, if you're thinking
James
of
Bond.
just, yeah, I mean, James Bond, the theme song's been around for a long time, but if you're thinking of like full scores, Star
Yeah.
Wars takes that
Sheer
one.
yeah.
depth.
Like James Bond is known more for the way that it cycles through songs,
Yeah.
like with the theme music,
Mhm.
more so than the actual James Bond like theme itself. Like the celebrities, like the credit song for Bond is the iconic one, not necessarily the theme song.
I will
Mhm.
say it used to be what's his name? John Barry did all of the music for that until he died.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So the original like that's him. And a lot of like the original scores do feel like that. It's only
Mhm.
afterwards, and obviously they did have the feature, but for most part, a lot of the early films have a very similar score.
Mhm.
But I think that's just, I mean, that's how composers are. It's like any
Oh, yeah.
musician, they have a signature sound.
Mhm.
I know Bernard Herrmann also has a very signature sound. You know, did the soundtrack to Vertigo, to Taxi Driver. If he was
Danny
in any of
Elfman.
those, huh?
Danny Elfman.
Mhm.
Danny Elfman, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Any one of those, Hans Zimmer, you know, they have a signature sound.
Mhm.
Um, and they're all very important to each one of their films.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
couldn't see any of the films with like a different score, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I think yeah, it's as epic rap battles of history. No, never mind. That wasn't in the context of Star Wars. Never mind. I was gonna quote the line about Spielberg that half your billions should go to
Um,
John Williams, which is true for Star Wars, but that was about Steven Spielberg, right?
I did notice, and this is something I notice every time I watch Star Wars: A New Hope.
Mm.
Um, Leia is British for about 25%.
I was noticing that as well. Here's what I
She's
will
sort of
say.
got like a transatlantic accent, like you'd see
Yeah.
in like 40s and 50s movies.
Oh
No,
yeah.
no, it's not transatlantic. It's definitely an
You would
attempt at
say
a
it's a
British accent.
well, here's the thing I will say. She I don't know, she does it almost only with I feel like I can't think of a moment with non-imperials that she has the pseudo-British
Yeah,
accent. I'm
But
almost
she's talking to
wondering,
Tarkin and Vader.
yeah, I'm almost wondering if that was
yeah, no,
actually
I
a creative decision in the sense of
it
that's the
is
voice he put.
honestly it fits really well. And it's
Yeah,
not just when she's talking to Imperials, specifically when she's still an Imperial senator.
yeah. Like
Because
she
later on she drops the accent.
Yeah, like honestly, once Alderaan is blown up, she like the way she says
Even when
but.
she's talking about Alderaan, when she's like she sort of drops it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really mainly in the first few scenes.
Mhm.
Rebel
Before they
Leia
take
does
her
not have the
prisoner.
accent, but Senator
Like
Princess Leia.
Yeah.
mhm.
Which does fit in a way.
Yeah. Again, it's hard. I honestly wonder this was this time around. I always like sort of assumed it was like a weird like
I don't think it was
mistakes
intentional.
too strong.
I think it's like she was starting to do it and it wasn't really working and they just told her to drop it, or she
Yeah.
just dropped it.
Yeah. But I will say
But
this.
it does fit. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, it could be an accident or it could be intentional, but it does actually fit the character to an extent. And you know, I'll let me ask you guys sort of as like a final wrap up thing. Who is your favorite Star Wars character? Like in either New Hope or even the entire saga, entire universe, which gosh, there are too many to count.
Bro, you
Well,
can't ask that question
No,
as a
no, no.
last
Original
question.
trilogy. Original trilogy. Or
okay,
just A New
Original
Hope,
trilogy.
maybe. Maybe just
okay.
A New Hope. I don't
Just this
know.
film?
Yeah.
Just
That's
this film.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
this film.
Just this film. Yeah. Favorite character of A New Hope. Who's your
I
favorite?
gotta love Han Solo, man. Harrison Ford's my boy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Max,
Max,
who's your
you go. I got to think about this one.
I liked Aunt Beru. She was my
hell
favorite
yeah.
character.
Hell yes. Hell yes.
Um, her performance as a shish kebab was
Damn. Oh, you can't see it.
that moment when
Yeah,
she's putting
my
the
favorite
onion-
my favorite is the Jawa that goes Utini.
That's again.
Um, yeah, there's so many great characters. Han's up there.
Mhm,
I think I like the way he's characterized in episodes 5 and 6, probably a little bit better than this one.
mhm.
Um, I don't know, man.
Pick.
I like Guinness as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mhm,
It's hard to top that, and I know Ewan McGregor did a great job in the
mhm.
prequels and in the Obi-Wan series, but
He was building off of Alec Guinness's like god tier performance, I would say. Like,
yeah, more so in this film than in his, minor appearances in episodes 5 and 6.
yeah, yes, I agree. I think you in some way helped me out there by taking Obi-Wan, so now I can take him. I mean, I could, but I think I'll go with Luke. I think, he is arguably one of the most iconic examples of the character and the hero's journey, and I think we're all the better for for it. Yeah. But yeah, I think that
Yeah, Luke's another one that I think I prefer the characterization in episodes 5 and 6.
that's fair. That's
um,
very fair.
and my real answer is actually Vader. I
Yes, thank
think
you.
like the opening scene when you're introduced to him is just amazing. And I think because of what they wanted to do, Vader is Star Wars to a certain extent. Like you can't separate the two of them, and for good reason. Yeah, iconic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna revise my choice actually to Grand Moff Tarkin.
He's a great character.
Declan, this is why you couldn't ask the entire franchise for a last question.
Yeah,
Reduce it to one film and we're still talking about it.
That is fair.
but it's just he puts off such an amazing performance, really intimidating, really menacing, carrying the gravitas that Peter Cushing obviously would carry.
The
Um,
bloopers of Peter Cushing, especially in his interactions with Carrie Fisher, so funny. If you haven't seen them, go find them.
I find the performance especially amazing considering Peter Cushing famously told Christopher Lee later on when he was going to do Star Wars, he's recalling this, that he asked Peter Cushing about the film, and Peter Cushing said, "I don't get it."
Yes. In Peter Cushing's defense, a lot of people didn't get it prior.
I know. I just love that he gives such a great performance. It shows the type of actor that some of these people are.
Yeah, and we are also lucky that they came to performances.
A lot of the British people actually just kept making fun of George Lucas, like the British extras and stuff.
Yeah. Though again, also there are more than one bloopers of Khan or of Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher actively mocking George Lucas as well. It's like that. It just warms your heart, how great their chemistry both on and off screen seemed to be.
Well, they had to keep his spirits up.
Exactly.
Because he was like actually depressed making this film.
Oh, and
nobody believed in him, and so he didn't believe in himself. I think that's half the reason he sold the rights to Disney. It's because everybody like taunted him so much. He said that he didn't want to sell them, and then he just got so depressed and people making fun of his movies that he sold them. He's like, all right.
We should hold that for our inevitable sequel trilogy final episode of the podcast, because afterwards we'll hate each other. No, kidding, but no, let's save that for this.
Wrong.
We'll save that for that episode. But till then, this has been the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. And also, if you haven't seen Star Wars, you really should go see Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't know what you've been doing.
That's the final point.
I saw this film when I was 6,
Yeah.
as did most people.
Hell yeah. I probably the same as
Yeah,
well.
probably about right.
But yeah. Anyway, until next time, everyone, have a good night.
Good night, and may the force be with you.